Hello, this is Ryan, and I am presenting Chapter 5 titled The Common School and the Threat of Cultural Pluralism. So, the majority of events covered in this chapter happened between 1800 and 1830. However, the timeline of the chapter ranges from 1800 to about 1884. To summarize the chapter, the primary theme from my interpretation is that schools have been used to A. Preserve culture, B. Stagnate cultural growth, and C. Transform culture, and D. Equalize power and political influence. So just to give you an insight into my bias, my background, my mom's side is Cherokee, my dad's side is Jewish. In my DNA, then, I have skepticism for authority. Additionally, having gone to school in Hawaii and learning the violent nature in which missionaries made Hawaii a state in the United States, and teaching with a Jewish last name in a Catholic school, I've experienced first and second-hand accounts of what it's like to be devalued for race or religious backgrounds. So the chapter starts with an influx of immigrants into the U.S. in around 1830, and I refer to this conflict as religious wars. The primary culture in 1830 was Protestant Anglo-Saxon. For many, school became a place to preserve and teach Protestant beliefs. Irish Catholics tried to be a part of public education, but being denied public funds and refusing to be taught Protestant and anti-Catholic teachings, they started their own private schools. The chapter also discusses what I call race wars. In the early 1800s, there were about 3,500, 3,600 slaves in the northern states. By 1820, many African American thought leaders realized that segregation benefited nobody. In 1855, a law was passed to allow all races and religions into Boston public schools, a sign of open-mindedness that still exists today in Boston's educational and progressive environment. The chapter also discusses land wars, and this is actually the majority of the chapter. So in the early 1800s, the Protestant Anglo-Saxons wanted to acquire land from Native Americans. To convince Native Americans to sell the land, they had to first convince them that property and the production and trading of material goods was a good thing. Nobody was buying it, so in the late 1820s, Thomas McKenney thought that education would be a good way to sell cultural values. And perhaps this is the first intentional design of a hidden curriculum. However, between 1819 and 1821, the Native Americans realized that their hunting had decreased to the point that education became a necessity. Also during that time, written language is created. All this adds up and really upsets Andrew Jackson, and in 1830, he is the lead voice in the Removal Act, and in 1830 that is passed. In 1839, the military begins to assist in the removal of Native Americans, and in the 1840s, Native American schools begin to pop up, and in 1889, compulsory attendance is created. To conclude the chapter, I see that schools throughout history have been used to preserve, stagnate, and transform cultures. And I also am troubled by the idea that in order to keep up with the Protestant culture, other cultures had to adapt the means of education and in a similar manner, and I think it also led to a loss of culture. And in the DNA of American schooling, we can see through this chapter that we have traces of hatred, genocide, and manifest destiny, which seems to be a recurring theme throughout all the chapters. And it's, just this reason of, because that's what I think, therefore that's correct. On the positive side, however, in the DNA of American schooling, we do have traces of open-mindedness. So that it's important to note that not all of history is negative, despite my tendency to point in that direction. So lastly, I'd like to wrap it up by asking a couple of questions. So where are we now? What agendas are being pushed, and what are the motives behind the agendas? Is public education promoting or discouraging cultural pluralism? and what values and opportunities have been overlooked as a result of ethnocentric motives. That was Chapter 5, and I am Ryan Katz. Hope you all are well.